Welcome back to Deep Current, the podcast where we go beneath the surface of business, operations, and technology to understand what really drives results. So today I'm joined by Pugh, Director of Operations at Murphy's in Atlanta. Murphy's has been a part of the Virginia Highland community for 45 years, with a reputation built around elevated comfort food, brunch, wine, private events, and the kind of hospitality that turns first-time guests into regulars. So Joy's career has crossed restaurant operations, fine dining, banquets, private events, sales, staff. I could go on. It's forever. So that gives her a rare view of both what the guests see and the enormous amount of coordination that they never see. So Joy, welcome to Deep Current.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So thank you for joining me again. And before we get into Murphy's and the industry, what pulled you first into hospitality and what has kept you in it as well?
So I think, like so many other people, I saw it as an opportunity, as in my 20s to make good money while I was in college. And coming from a background of my family and what that looked like for us to celebrate, one of my favorite stories is my grandmother who didn't have a high school education, never learned how to drive a car, who worked until she was 70, but she would put on dinners for 30 people in her home. And that is where some of our best memories of my childhood and our family really were rooted. And so when I got into the hospitality business and I started serving, there was just this innate, feeling that I could anticipate people's needs. I loved making them feel good and I loved being of service. And I really think that matters in this business where, if your language isn't acts of service, you really don't need to be in it. So that made me fall in love with it. And then the business side of it really intrigued me and propelled me to have a 30 some odd year career in it.
Amazing. That's fantastic. And was there a specific restaurant leader or guest interaction maybe that made you realize that that was your industry?
I think there are three key things. My first real serving job was at a little restaurant in my hometown, Mobile, Alabama, called Loretta's, and it was owned by a couple. And the husband was the chef, and he could tell you from when the product came in the front door until it got on the plate how it was going to be prepared, what it was going to look like, and how to explain it. And I loved that. So when I made a decision to move to California in 2001, I kind of took that with me and ended up, oddly enough, having a connection with somebody that worked with Wolfgang Puck. So I joined his company at the corporate level when I first moved to California and then ended up working in both his casual dining and fine dining restaurants for the next 7 years in Las Vegas, in Maui. And I always say, like, Wolfgang Puck made me a restaurateur. But when I went to Disney after that, Disney made me a leader. So two totally different focuses, right? Wolfgang Puck was about luxury, about the experience, about understanding the food, the wine, the people that came in, recognizing, what that was about and pulling the most from it. But when I went to Disney, it really changed my focus from, not just from that and the guest experience, but also leading a staff. We were able to work with international college program students and people that had been with the company for 40 years all at the same time. So multi-generational staff, a large staff, in fine dining, 365 days a year, 800 covers a night, just very specific, giving, everybody their Disney experience, but also the staff was really the focus because if you focus on them, they take care of the guest.
You're right. And you actually answered my next question. It was going to be
Sure.
like all those experiences together. I mean, all those different environments teach you something. And you already mentioned it, right? Each of them gave you something that you now apply at Murphy's, most likely.
Absolutely. 100%.
That's great. So when you move from managing a shift or a department to directing operations, what changed most about how you define a good day?
Well, because my day is very different. So instead of just looking at my day, I look at, the past, the present, and the future all in one scenario, right? What did we do last year at this time and why? What are we doing today and how does that impact our bottom line and our guest experience and our staff? And what have we got planned for the next week, month, 6 months out that I've got to think about, plan, and coordinate so that it moves seamlessly?
Mhm.
So there's a big shift in your head where you go, okay, I'm going in today and I've got, 150 covers on the books and we've got, 8 servers and yada yada, which is all very important and you need to focus on. But I also have to think about, okay, what are we doing as far as like what are we putting towards the bottom line and how am I growing the business? And what are the expectations from the owners 6 months from now? And how am I going to be impactful then as well?
And where do you think you spend the most leadership energy right now?
Right now, I spend the most leadership energy with coordination for the managers and for the sous chefs. I've been with Murphy's now for 10 years. We are a 45-year-old brand in Atlanta, which is a major market, and we have a reputation and a brand to uphold. So teaching them, giving them guidance, letting them understand what this looks like on a daily basis, but also on a future plane is super important. And then coordinating what they do to make sure that it's impactful as a whole, right? Everybody's got their AOR, right? Somebody does scheduling, someone handles the bar, someone handles beverage purchasing, someone handles, private events. Well, I handle private events too, but someone handles every aspect of the restaurant. Each one has their own special area of responsibility and making sure that all of those things work together and everyone's communicating and everyone is on the same page at all times. Because the last thing you want is for there to be a surprise or someone to be left out of the loop.
Perfect. Yeah, I like that. And do you feel like there's something that only reaches you after it has already become urgent or no?
Sometimes, sometimes, but that's usually when I haven't double checked.
Hmm.
I take responsibility first for not looking or assuming, and we all know what assuming does. And sometimes you don't realize that, okay, we're going to be down a staff member and that person plays a key role. And how do we coordinate to cover that while also, making sure the rest of the operations running smoothly? And that can be difficult, especially, people have lives, they have emergencies, they get
Yeah,
ill, they, we have a dishwasher that's been out for 2 months. He was hospitalized, and it makes a huge difference on how we schedule, how we prepare, and what they need
yeah,
while they're not there with us. So, you just have to keep your eye on so many different things. And sometimes, you let one thing slip through the cracks and it ends up becoming quite the wrench in the gears.
that makes total sense. Yeah, for sure. And switching gears a little bit, Murphy entered a new ownership chapter in January, if I'm not mistaken, from my research.
Yes, it did.
So, I mean, with the new owners taking over after 45 years under Tom Murphy, from an operations perspective, what did the transition actually look or feel like behind the scenes?
Well, I would love to say that it was perfectly smooth and it was because nothing else changed. Tom was such a charismatic figure in the neighborhood and in the city and really, was the face of Murphy's for forever, for the whole time. And but Murphy's after 45 years have become bigger than one man. We're a staple of the neighborhood. And, we were lucky that our executive chef and his father, who was actually the executive chef 20 years ago, were the new owners,
Okay.
along with all three of Tom's children. They also bought in and a couple of other investors. And so the continuity of service and they're seeing the same faces, they're eating the same food, they're getting the same exact experience they had a week ago before we changed ownership was huge. That was what we held on to. We were like, nothing changes, the boat sails, there's just a different captain now.
Of course. No, and it makes sense. And if people don't read the news or if they don't know that Murphy changed ownership, they probably don't even notice. I mean,
No,
it's the same thing.
they wouldn't have noticed it at all.
Yeah.
Had it not been in the news, they wouldn't have noticed it at all.
That's great. That's great. So when a restaurant has generations of regulars, right? How do you decide what must stay sacred and what is allowed to evolve?
So, very easy question, but multi-layered. There are some items on our menu that we know we're never going to be able to take off, no matter how much, the chef wants to try something different or do something new, it's going to take a different slot on the menu. We have a beef brisket that's been on our menu since, and in fact, the owner, our chef now, his father, the previous chef, Greg McCarthy, developed our Guinness braised brisket. It is our number one seller
Uh,
year round, even in the hottest of months. People come there specifically for that. We will never take that off the menu. People expect it. It's consistent and it's absolutely delicious. And it's actually what saved us during the pandemic, that dish. I'll credit that dish with saving us, or a lot of the credit goes to that dish. But, also we do an annual Christmas tree lighting where we invite the Georgia Boy Choir out and we donate money to them so they'll sing for the crowd. We do hot cocoa and cookies for free. We put a 15-foot Christmas tree on the top of our restaurant. We have Santa. It's a big deal. We'll never get rid of that tradition. It is a huge deal for the neighborhood. We have 300 people outside of our restaurant enjoying the holiday spirit. We kick it off the Thursday after Thanksgiving every year. Those things will always remain bedrock. But, what we've seen and what we've noticed is the lack of community in restaurants these days. And with our tagline, where Virginia and Highland meet, because we're there on the corner of those two roads in that neighborhood, we made an experiential turn, and we're starting to have mahjong classes. A few months ago, I met a mahjong instructor. She thought Murphy's was the perfect place. I was like, I've never heard of such a trend. Let me do some investigation, right? And turns out everybody's into mahjong.
mhm.
So I'm like, why not? Let's just try on Thursday nights when we're a little bit slower to start mahjong lessons, right? And it has taken off. We've sold out 2 solid months in advance for Thursday nights for mahjong lessons. So that's certainly different, inviting, other entities and sort of community activities into the restaurant where people participate and pay, and we have hors d'oeuvres and drinks, and you get a mahjong lesson and you get the card, and eventually you become, an open play, mahjonger,
Mhm.
lack of a better word. I don't even know what they call mahjong players, but mahjonger. We've done that. We've also started a book club once a month where it's a dinner party based on a book that we select, and that's sold out for the first 2 months. So we're working on October's book club now. What we found is people are looking for a place to communicate one on one with other people that they may not know and really branch out. And in restaurants today, you really can't do that unless you give them a way to interact and have a conversation. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. And we'll see. It's test it, try it. If it fails, we tweak it or we let it go.
That's very interesting, and I love it. It's a new dynamic. I think socially we're very different now than what we were 10,
Yes,
15 years ago. I mean, post pandemic, everything social interactions changed for sure. So staying creative, evolving the business with these small changes while keeping what culturally has made Murphy what it is today. I think it's a great mix. So I
for
like
sure.
that. I like that idea.
Well, what we noticed is we had so many we have a lot of female guests that come in and that bring a book and read at our bar, which I'm extremely proud of, or sit at a table by themselves and dine, right, with a book or with their phone, with their Kindles open. I'm very proud of that we're a safe place for people to come in and feel welcome by themselves, especially for women these days, right?
Mhm.
We're the place you can go and nobody's going to bother you and you're going to get served and you're going to have a nice conversation or be left alone to read. And we kept having these conversations like, what are you reading? Well, I'm reading this. And, it just shows that the opportunity is there if you're noticing what your guests are doing. I have families that bring in decks of cards and play cards while they eat brunch on Sunday morning. And you're like, they want to have something to do besides just eat and go, right? So let's provide that.
Perfect. I love that. And so Murphy is simultaneously a brunch destination, lunch, dinner. You have bakery, wine shop, private events, catering, like everything. Which part of that mix creates the most operational complexity?
Really, I would think the private dining portion of it, no, I don't know. I think it all works pretty well. It's sort of like a symphony. Each person knows its part. We coordinate very well with one another. In fact, the reason why I was there late last night is we had a buyout for rehearsal dinner, dinner for 60 and then drinks and snacks for 140 afterwards. And again, we see this growing more popular. I think that's one of the biggest shifts I've seen in the private dining industry is that people don't just want to do a dinner for 30 people. They want to do dinner for 50 and then they want to have, another 100 people come in and have cocktails as a welcome party for their wedding weekend. And so we've leaned into it, right? We've adapted. And that has been a way to keep creativity and interest alive with the management team, right? I have a beverage director who runs the retail portion of it. And when you go, okay, I'm going to have 140 people in and we need to do this, we need to do wine and beer at this price. And he's like, okay, I'm on it. So he goes through and calls what we need. He puts it out there. He prices it correctly. And, we cost it the way it should be costed where we can make a profit, but the guest gets the best experience they can have.
Yeah, perfect. I like that. And if a day goes wrong, sometimes things happen, right? Is there like an early signal that you can see that something might go off that day?
So you don't know what you don't know, right? So
Mhm.
you can prepare as much as possible. Like, I'm very much a staunch believer in, get in, get all the mundane things out of the way, the things you need to do out of the way. Because inevitably, when you don't, when you lag behind, when you take that day where you're just going to phone it in, that's the day you're going to have an electrical fire or the hot water heater's going to go out or oh, by the way, there was a water main break and there's no water pressure in the restaurant. Or, list the things that have gone wrong in the past 6 years in the world and in our communities. And, it may happen. So I big believer of being ready and getting the little things out of the way so you can pay attention and see the big things coming down the track or react and pivot quickly
Mhm.
when they do.
I like that. I like that. I watched The Bear recently, the show from the Chicago restaurant, and
Yeah.
I'm hoping that that's not the case like for all restaurants, but that place was a mess. I mean, I'm watching it and my anxiety was like building up like crazy because you can only
Season
imagine.
1, I couldn't watch it for the first 3 years. I started it, and I would be like, "No, no, this is making me too anxious." When the tickets started coming for the to-go, I was like, "No, don't make that sound anymore." That just reminded me of so many times when we were like, "You've gotta be kidding, this is happening," right? So many horror stories related to that. So, yeah, I can feel you on it.
If you haven't watched it, so to our listeners, if you haven't watched it, so sorry for the spoilers, but you have to. It's a good show. Across reservations, online ordering, events, like everything that you guys have, like regular guests and everything. How connected is the information your team needs to make decisions? Do you have like non-verbal communication, or are there any like rituals that you guys do like to make sure that everyone knows what's happening at all times?
We try to do a meeting every day at 3 o'clock. That doesn't always come off because everybody's so busy doing other things sometimes, but we do have a weekly manager meeting where we kinda go over the agenda for the week or the next week and go over issues we had in the past week. But really, we are having a constant conversation while we're at work.
Hmm.
It's a constant check-in. Like, "Have you seen this? Do you know this? Do you understand what's going on there? Why is this happening?" Not just coaching in the moment for the staff, but all of us coaching one another in what's going on in the restaurant at any given time. It's huge, and you have to have a closely knit team. You have to have a team that communicates well and works well together to be able to achieve that. So picking the right people and definitely making sure that the mechanics are there to communicate. The logbook is used properly every day, that, we're checking in with one another and alerting one another to, what we see in the front, taking that to the kitchen, and the kitchen doing the same for us.
That's great. Is there any like type of reporting that you would like to have every week or every day?
So we get a lot of reporting in. We actually we have 4 or 5 different softwares that we use every day that give us information. We use obviously Open Table notifies us of our shift numbers, right? How many reservations, how many covers, breaks it down by the hour, shows us who the VIPs are that are coming in, or our regulars that are coming in, or any special notes for allergies or issues. We also we use a Vero, and we use their logbook, and we use the sort of the aggregate platform that they have, their dashboard that gives us, same day last year, same day last week, what we've sold, what our menu mix is. So we can really take a look every day. What are we selling? What are we not selling? What the problem may be on our check average, or why. Just an answer, just to get the question going of why. Why aren't we selling more desserts? Why did we not sell a lot of the special? That sort of thing.
Makes sense. Yeah, for sure. And going back to, not going back, like going forward to the industry in general, like it's still growing. The restaurants are still growing. The industry is growing, but the economics aren't forgiving, right? Like the National Restaurant Association says that 42% of operators were not profitable last year. Where do you feel that the most pressure comes from? Like, is it food, labor, insurance, vendor costs, fees, even traffic?
It's food and labor.
Mm-hmm.
It all goes back to food and labor. Right now, food costs are ridiculous and they're changing daily. And, when I first started with Wolfgang, I used a software that calculated the overages and pricing for, commodities like cheese
Mm-hmm.
or our, cheese and bag and box sodas and things like that. And when there are contractual deals and look, the vendor actually charged us more that time. We need to get that refund back. Running a singular, family owned business, having someone continuously looking at that, it's almost impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So making the best decisions in real time, constantly costing the food, noticing what prices are doing, especially for seafood and for beef right now. They're huge. And sourcing local ingredients, right? We deal with a lot of local farmers. They're really great to us, and it really helped us when the parasite developed. We could honestly say we only use produce from these people, right? This is where we're sourcing from. We know where it comes from. We know what's on your plate, but it fluctuates daily.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to keep an eye on it and keep an eye and not raise our prices just because, right? You can't just say, well, we're going to charge you $3 extra a plate, because that makes it easier for us to budget,
No, of course. And that was going to be my follow-up question. Like how do you protect
right?
value for your guests without sacrificing margins, right? Because you need to keep that balance. Guests,
Right.
especially the regulars, know your prices already. And if you start charging more all of a sudden, they're gonna be like, hey, why? This is
Why
tough.
does this now cost me this when last
Yeah,
year or last month it cost me this? Exactly. I think people have enough common sense to realize on some things, especially beef and seafood, that things will be more expensive sometimes. But we do a very good job of sourcing. I will give you an example. We had a branzino dish on our menu that we were using a whole branzino and butterflying it, and that became hard to source because of tariffs, quite frankly,
sure.
and it was through the roof. And so we did find branzino, but in fillets that were coming out of Mallorca and were not going to be as expensive, even though the tariffs were still there. So we did make a switch on the menu. And before we could reprint, we started the switch. So we had to train our staff like, if someone orders this or if someone's interested in this, you need to preempt that conversation with, we have switched from a whole. It's the same ounce as a fish. It's the same ounce portion, but it's not going to be a whole fish. It's going to be a fillet now. So always briefing the staff too on what we're doing and why we're doing it, so that if a guest has a question, they can come up with an answer or they can get the answer readily. But labor also is
Sure.
a huge
No,
issue in our
and it
business.
makes
Labor is a huge issue in our business right now. Being able to pay people a livable wage to retain experienced line cooks and pastry chefs and bakers and baristas and dishwashers and prep cooks. I mean, it is a challenge to, that's why sales are so important to us. Like, my main focus right now is different revenues of income,
mhm.
because we've got to make sure we protect these guys and keep them well paid and happy with their jobs, so that when the busy months are here, they feel good about it and they've been protected throughout the slower times.
No, of course, and I think the people is very important. Actually, I mean, especially in a legacy restaurant, because it's
Yes.
usually judged against its own best memories, right? So you need a
Right.
service. The service needs to be spot on, and the people need to be well trained. And if you already have a guy that's been with you for 5 years, you want to keep that person, right?
Right.
Makes sense. So I think nearly three-quarters of restaurant operators expect to hire in 2026, but anticipate difficulty finding experienced managers and chefs. That's exactly what you were saying, right? So what are you seeing in Atlanta? Is that and what makes someone stay at Murphy's?
Well, I so interestingly enough, we went through a lot of challenges. Well, not interestingly enough, we like everybody, we went through a lot of challenges finding management after COVID. It took us probably until January of 2025 really to build a solid team. So 5 years, right, of rotating through people, trying to get the right people. People were job hopping because everybody had huge sign-on bonuses and promised the world, and people
Mm,
left because of that. I think one of the main things we offer is stability and really focusing on work-life balance, trying to make sure we keep in mind that people, especially younger millennials and Gen Z, which now we're moving into that management team, that's a focus for them.
yeah.
Where I'm Gen X, right? I've been doing this a long time. I was raised in this business by boomers,
Hmm.
the baby boomers, and we did not put enough emphasis on life balance. We were there for the work. We were there for the, 14, 16-hour days, go home, go to sleep, or go out, go home, go to sleep, get back up, do it again, right? That's not how they're going to live. And I don't know whether to be jealous of that or to admire it, because it certainly wasn't my experience in my 20s and 30s and even into my 40s in this business. But it's definitely something we've recognized that we need to incorporate so that people feel seen, people feel appreciated, they're rewarded. We give out monthly bonuses, not quarterly bonuses. We bonus by the period. Everyone splits it equally. There's no hierarchy on that. So, we win as a team, we lose as a team, and we also respect each other's boundaries and make sure that people have what they need to live a successful life outside of work. And if you stick with that, you'll get the best management team you can possibly get in the restaurant business.
I like that answer. Yeah, for sure. And then at the end of the day, it's hospitality. So you need people that give the best experience for your guests. So I agree.
Yeah,
And
happy people give off a different energy. People that are fulfilled
mhm,
and that feel seen and heard and valued give off a different energy than people that are literally going through the motions and have run out of steam. So you've got to got to fill that tank back up, whenever you can for people.
perfect. And the guest journey, like in general, it goes from website reservations, online ordering, event inquiries, like follow-up communication. There's a lot of things. Where does your technology remove friction?
Well, we've been able to partner and got on really early with Pop Menu. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're a platform that actually, built our website, built our online ordering platform, gives us a way to mass communicate with our customers, whether it's via email, whether we are posting on social media through it, whether we're sending out offers, whether we're giving offers to people, after your fifth order, you get 20% off online ordering, that sort of thing. They've been key. And again, like I said, we were early adapters with them. And I think most of the websites I go to now in Atlanta and across the board are with Pop Menu or a platform similar to that. And, that's been key for us. For me to be able to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to create an ordering event, a ticketed event on this platform for a Mahjong lesson on August the 13th. I'm going to post it as a calendar event on with a link to the ticketing event on our website. And then I'm going to send out a mass email to 45,000 customers, which we have a huge email database. And we sold out within an hour. and it took me maybe 20 to 25 minutes. And when you say an hour, that's $1,400 worth of revenue in an hour. Just off a ticketing platform, that is huge for us.
Yeah, can imagine.
It makes us small, but it makes our business so much easier to run.
No, for sure. And is there any specific headache that you have right now that you would automate, or not at the moment? I mean, I think hearing you, I think you have everything figured out already.
Well, we don't, but I appreciate you thinking we do. Right now, we're trying to automate our training. Honestly, again, you generational, right? Handheld phones, and we hand people a binder with like 500 pages that they're not going to read. Right? They're not going to read that. I wouldn't read that. So that's my next step in my journey is to automate our training and to make it more accessible and easier for people to learn what the rules and standards and menu items are and the steps of service and code of conduct and everything else. But the other part of this is we're having to go back we're having to teach people what hospitality feels like. So you've got a generation of people who were either in college or getting out of high school or in their formative or early, late teens, early 20s during a time when society stopped,
Hmm.
right? They also grew up in a different dynamic of, after school sports and dinner, wasn't set, you didn't sit at a table and dine with your entire family. It was, and if you did, you were a rarity, right? So we are taking a turn on it, and we started a few years back. Stuff got in the way, life got in the way, and we had to discontinue it for a while. But we've come back to it now, and we feature a supper club once a month for our staff, and we bring them in as guests. And one of the senior managers or one of the owners sits with them and dines. And we take them through the menu from start to finish with a welcome cocktail, with appetizers paired with wines. And we explain it to them and we serve them. I serve them. One of the other managers serves them. They just get to experience what it's like to be a customer at Murphy's
Hmm.
and the way we want people to feel. And you can't automate that.
Yeah, of course.
There's no book that can teach people how to make others feel. And we're just taking it back to bare bones right now and showing the value in what we do because we don't want order takers. We want hospitalitarians. And that's what we're trying to do now.
That's
And raise our next management team. I've got at least 3 or 4 people that I could say, "Hey guys, so and so's leaving. Did you want to look at this role?" And they would be more than glad to step into it. And that makes me proud too, because we need to grow people instead of going outside.
Yeah, that's definitely great for sure. So I need to ask a question because it's the trending topic right now, right? AI. Everyone's using AI. Everyone wants to implement AI. So my question to you is there it's basically being placed on every restaurant product right now, right? So what would make an AI tool really useful for an experienced operator, or what would make it an immediate no? Are you using AI right now inside the restaurant?
So, yes. So, in one aspect. So, when I say we're automating the training, AI is key with building a platform where I can download information that we've already created and it can create testing and quizzes and build a sort of a module set where people can progressively go through pass or fail exams to get to the end of training. That has been key because, I'm not a programmer. So, and I am working with someone on it, but AI makes it much quicker and much more nimble and figuring out what the platform wants us to do to give it to them so it comes out with the right result. You still have to think about it, but we do not use AI to generate any material for social media, for emails, for anything. We are in the business of being creative and communicating with other people, not mass producing something that isn't authentic. I will say that would be my only thing. Sometimes with the platform that we use, Pop Menu, they'll ask us if we want AI to create a social post, and we always say no.
Okay.
It never comes out as heartfelt or authentic or, what we want to represent. And so we just don't use it.
Makes sense. No, I like that. And going to the and moving forward to the community, because we talked about this already, right? Murphy's been part of the community since forever. And so 3 years from now, what do you hope that feels exactly the same at Murphy's? And what do you hope it's noticeably better?
Wow. So I think what I really want to see in 3 years is to watch the kids I know going into high school now graduate and do their graduation parties with us, or the people that had their first dates with us to have their rehearsal dinners with us. We do that a lot now, but it's just after being there for 10 years, there's so many young people and parents that I know that I think that that is one thing that makes us unique. We have so many people that are like, we had our first date here and we got engaged here and now we're having our I'm having my bridal shower here, or we're celebrating our anniversary. I love that about us. And I love watching one generation bring that grew up coming to Murphy's bring their kids back. And that's getting to watch their kids grow up and having that kind of personal relationship. So I hope that never changes. I don't want that to change. We're very family friendly. We can be a great date night spot and we can also be a place where you bring your kids and we treat them just like any other kids are guests as well. So don't want that to change.
That's nice.
But what I would like to see maybe us do is maybe, the building we have is old. So really looking forward to a time where we could renovate a bit and give it maybe a fresher look, not necessarily change the architecture, but definitely modernize it a bit and make it fresher and maybe give it a few more bells and whistles to attract people in. So our patio right now is super popular, but it's also very difficult to sometimes maintain because of the weather. And I'd love to see that, turn into more of a glass sort of greenhouse
Mm-hmm.
atrium feel, more of a garden room than a tinted patio. And I really am excited to see where Chef takes us food wise. Again, classics will never change, but he's so brilliant and the food he puts out is so good. And the offerings that we've been able to provide now have been, well received. So I'll love to see what that looks like.
I love it. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I like closing up with a little lightning round. Short answers, quick and simple. So, brunch, lunch, or dinner? Which service would you choose if you can only choose one?
Brunch,
Brunch. I love brunch. So, yeah, I think that was a good answer. The most underrated metric in restaurant operations.
direct operating expenses,
Okay. Hire for experience or attitude.
attitude,
Okay. A restaurant technology that earns its cost.
pop menu,
Yeah, you already mentioned that. I knew that was going to be the answer. The Murphy's dish or experience a first time guest cannot miss. And you already said this, I think.
the brisket, the
Yeah.
Guinness braised brisket, absolutely.
Yeah. The best leadership advice you have received.
Time is an assassin.
Wow. Was there a specific context for that answer?
So, yeah, so I worked for Wolfgang. I had a managing partner named Alex Resnick. And, he looked at me one day and he's like, Joy, time is an assassin. So it's always going to be hunting us, right? If you don't get it done now, you're never going to get it done and you're going to be behind. So I try to sort of, live by that mantra. Time is an assassin. If I don't get it done now, it's going to be an even bigger fight or we're not going to get it done at all.
I
So,
like it. I like it. I like that.
yeah.
Pretty good. So, Joe, before we close, what is one question you wish more people asked about restaurant operations and how would you answer it?
How well do you treat your staff?
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's good.
And, are you looking at them as human beings or just people who fill a slot?
Nice. And what would be your answer to that?
We do our absolute best,
Yeah, no, I think it is what it is, right?
right? Sometimes you miss it. Sometimes you swing and you miss, but for the most part, I know that we do keep them in mind and are always looking to treat them as individuals and know that they're seen.
I like that for sure. And for listeners who want to learn more about Murphy's, make a reservation, plan a private event, where should they go?
Murphy'sAtlanta.com.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. That's easy. Any way they can connect with you directly?
Sure. My email is joy at Murphy's B as in Victor, H as in Harry.com. So joy at Murphy'sVH.com.
Perfect. So, Joy, thank you so much for taking us behind the scenes of a true Atlanta institution like Murphy's. I appreciate the honesty, the practical perspective, and the reminder that great hospitality is never accidental. So, and for everyone listening, thank you for joining us at Deep Current. If this conversation was valuable, follow us, follow the show, and share this episode with someone building a better guest experience. Until next time, thank you very much, Joy.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.